Ladies and gentlemen, we meet again towards Parashat Emor for a short and sweet idea. Last week's Parasha, Achroimot and Kedoshim, had a concept, V'chai Bahem. V'chai Bahem means we have to live with them. From there we learned out from the Talmud that we have to keep alive in order to do the mitzvot to such an extent that even if for keeping alive we have to desecrate the Shabbat, so we desecrate Shabbat to save lives. Or if we have some kind of illness and the only medication is not kosher, so we can eat not kosher in order to save lives. The flip side of that coin is in this week's Parsha that says, V'nikdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael, which means we have to be willing to die for our Judaism. What does that mean? That means we cannot desecrate Hashem's name. And anybody who's ever died because of his Judaism throughout history is called a kadosh, a holy person, to such an extent that Rabbi Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, one of the great rabbis of Jerusalem who passed away 25 years ago, when he was asked, can his students go to Kivrei Tzadikim in the Galil or in Uman? He said, why? You have here in Jerusalem, you've got all the Chayalim that fell in the IDF throughout the history of the state of Israel. They're all Kedoshim, they all died on Kiddush Hashem. Dying on Kiddush Hashem is learned from the word V'nikdashti betoch b'nei Yisrael. Dying for you just because you're Jewish, whether it's in the army or whether it is through a terror attack, all those people have a special place in Gan Eden. Having said that, we should understand that the hero of this idea, one of the, I'm sorry to say, the many heroes of this idea, one of the most outstanding heroes of this idea is Rabbi Akiva, because when the Romans caught him teaching Torah, and they decided to torture him to death, as he was dying and being tortured to death, he said, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So his students said, aren't you exaggerating? Now you're being killed because you taught us Torah. So you're saying now, Shema Yisrael, V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha. You love HaKadosh Baruch Hu so much. So he answered them, all my life I've waited to do this mitzvah because we say, V'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, you should love HaKadosh Baruch Hu, B'chol levavcha, with all your heart, B'chol nafshecha, with all your soul. And now I can do it with all my soul. Now that I'm being killed because of my Judaism, this is a mitzvah I've been looking forward to do all my life, said Rabbi Akiva, which is an optimistic way of thinking and looking at things. He says, Baruch Hashem, even when I die, I'm dying through a mitzvah. Rabbi Akiva was an incredible optimist. In fact, the Talmud tells us a story that he, at that time of the Romans, when the Romans tried to rename Jerusalem to Ayala Capitolina, and they actually mowed down Jerusalem in order to build Ayala Capitolina, their new town, and call it a new name. And he, together with a few of his friends, Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Eliezer ben Azariah, Rabbi Yeshua, and he, Rabbi Akiva, went to see what is the state of Jerusalem at those days. He went up to the Mount Scopus to overlook, and they saw it, what a terrible state it was in. It was all in ruins. So they tore their clothing and started crying, and Rabbi Akiva started laughing. Why? He asked, why are you laughing? They asked him, why are you laughing? So he asked them, why are you crying? They were crying. Look at what Jerusalem looks like. We shouldn't be crying. Why are you laughing? He says, look, we know that we have a prophecy that Jerusalem will be plowed over. So like this prophecy has come to fruition, so will the next prophecy come to fruition, which is Od Yeshvuz Kenimus Kenot, that old people and young children will be still playing in the streets of Jerusalem. And Baruch Hashem, we see in our own eyes that it's taken some time, but this prophecy is coming alive during our days. But Rabbi Akiva already saw it then. In the beginning of the 2nd century, he understood, he saw beyond the horizon. Rabbi Akiva is the optimist that looks beyond death, looks beyond the horizon, looks beyond destruction, and he is the big optimist of all times. Further than that, I would like to tell you that this week's parsha we also have was Fartim lachem mocharat Shabbat miyom hanifchem et Omer hatlufa. The whole idea of Sfirat HaOmer comes from this week's parsha, Parashat Emor. And we know that in Sfirat HaOmer we have a sad time from Pesach till Lag BaOmer because 24,000 students of Rabbi Akiva passed away during this time. So why on Lag BaOmer, when they stop dying on Lag BaOmer, are we making a festivity? Is it a time for festivity? Why are we so positive and make a big festival out of Lag BaOmer and dance around the bonfire? I think it's such a great day. All that happened was that the plague ended. That's not such a happy thing. They must have been burying thousands of people still. Why are we so happy? Because Rabbi Akiva, that day when the plague ended, he collected 5 Talmidim, 5 students, 5 new students, and from these 5 students, we have all the Mishnah and all the Talmud. He saw beyond destruction. He saw beyond the horizon. He is the optimist of all times. And I want you to know that in general philosophy nowadays and in science, people look at a gloomy future, whether it is a hole in the ozone, which eventually will all melt, or there'll be a global warming, or there'll be some kind of atomic war between different continents, and we will destroy, the humanity will destruct itself. All have very gloomy and very dark predictions of the future. But we have a positive prediction. We believe in Mashiach. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm afraid to tell you, I don't know who Mashiach is, and I don't know exactly when he's going to come. But it means we believe in a positive future. That is Rabbi Akiva. And we in Yeshivot and Upnot Bnei Akiva, we try to follow the steps of Rabbi Akiva and always teach the boys and teach the girls. Be optimistic. Think beyond the horizon. And whatever happens, just be sure to be like Rabbi Akiva, that even if 24,000 students of his pass away, next day he gets up, takes 5 and continues. Whatever happens, pick up and continue. And this is our way to Gula Shleiman, to Mashiach B'mheira B'yamin.